It doesn't seem to matter. Dr. Ben Carson, they were hoping for calm. It got pretty rocky, and this video was a big reason. Do you think, Dr. Carson, authorities should release the video to get everything out there, get it out in the open?
Well, you know, one of the things that's going on in our society right now is a major amount of distrust of the authorities, and particularly government authorities. And everybody, from the president down, should be extremely concerned about this, because the ramifications of that can be devastating in our country. Having said that, I don't see a good reason not to release it. But, you know, I think the other more important thing is what can be done to prevent these kinds of situations from occurring. You know, obviously we need people talking to the community about consequences of your actions, because the outsiders are really the ones who are responsible. Before the outsiders got there the first night, there wasn't that much that was going on other than peaceful protesting.
Well, I don't know about that, Doctor. The first night we did see a lot of activity. Now, you're right. It could have been inspired by those outside. But I guess what I'm asking you is this. It's going to become an issue, no doubt, in the debate on Monday. How do you think the candidates should respond, especially when it can cut along extremes? We see things through our own prism. There are those who are going to say this is needless violence. Others who are going to argue even if a gun is found and that it was revealed that Scott might have had a gun after all, that it won't matter. So how do the candidates respond to that?
Well, remember, the president has to be the president of all the people. So, you know, to take sides is clearly the wrong thing to do. You know, our police officers put their lives on the line every day. That needs to be acknowledged. But it also needs to be acknowledged that the community is very distrustful, and what can we do to tamp down that distrust? Maybe talking about the possibility of other types of training. Is there something that could have been done, for instance, in this case in North Carolina? The wife is there pleading. You know, why not, you know, bring the wife over and talk to her? And, you know, she probably would have explained that this guy had some problems, and say to her, will you go in there and you get the gun from him? You know, what I'm saying
no, you're
is,
right. We don't know. We'll see how it sorts out.
There are different ways.
The National Guard is there. We do know that, you know, it got a little touch and go again last night. So maybe opinions are firmly held and they're not going to budge. So I guess, you know. And
that's what has to change.
Now, the mayor has already said she doesn't want either candidate to go there. So what do you think of how this settles out in the next few days?
Again, I disagree. I don't think there's anything wrong with the candidates going there, because this is a big issue, and this is going to have ramifications in other places. And we need, one of the things that's missing right now is the kind of leadership that comes in early in a situation like this and says, look, everybody, I know this looks bad, but we have a system in place to take care of that. My Justice Department is going to make sure this is all looked at carefully. We're going to make sure that everything is open and revealed to you. Just give us time. You know, I didn't hear that, but if we had heard that early on, I think a lot of this could be tamped down quite substantially.
Well, it might be, like you said, a little late for that. But let me ask you, I had Reverend Jesse Jackson here a couple of days ago, Doctor, and he more or less said this is another case where young black men feel victimized, and that he could understand the violence. He came very close almost to condoning it, saying that the number of white-collar crimes and the ill will that's been thrust upon innocent customers, even at Wells Fargo, justifies almost a tit for tat. What do you make of that?
Well, there's no justification, obviously, for violence, for destroying property and things of that nature. But there is a lot of frustration. Remember, you know, there are people who had hope. That hope is going away. You know, all the change that was supposed to occur has not occurred. Things are still the same. And we need people who actually understand what is creating that frustration and dealing with it. You know, why, for instance, in the inner cities and the African American community are people so frustrated? It's because they don't have a ladder of opportunity that they've had before. So many of our jobs have disappeared. You have a school system that is deteriorating, and yet they're forced to stay within that system. We have accumulating debts, which tends to impact those at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder first. We have immigration problems that are not being resolved, that are probably being exacerbated. All of these things are impacting on people. They might not even realize that they're impacting upon them, but it's creating an enormous frustration.
You know, Doctor, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the debate in a couple of days. You might have heard there's a presidential debate coming. And Ted Cruz, just yesterday, via Facebook, and belatedly announced his support for Donald Trump. What did you make of that?
Well, it's about time.
What took him so long? What do you think took him so long?
Resentment. I would expect that, they both developed, a close relationship early on, and then sometimes those are the relationships that become the most bitter when things don't go the way you expect them to go. So that's what's happened. But it also, it's not just Ted Cruz, but, so many of the established Republicans have rejected Donald Trump. And it lets you know that their priority is maintenance of the status quo. And that's more important to them than the issues of putting the people first and not making this a government-centric nation.
You know, Dr. Carson, Mark Cuban, the Dallas Mavericks owner, billionaire, was apparently given a choice front row seat by the Hillary Clinton folks at Monday's debate. I would assume to psych out Donald Trump. What do you think of that?
I'm sure that's the reason it was done. It's not going to work.
Well, what should he do? How should he return the favor?
By ignoring them, quite frankly, and sticking to the issues. They are going to be working extremely hard to get him distracted, to throw him off, to get him angry, so that they can make this about him. Because that's the only way they can win. They cannot win on the issues. They do not have any legitimate arguments.
All right, so how would you advise Donald Trump, who's pretty good at these debates, and yet he scored well, sometimes with a lot of personal insults, in the early days even against you. So I guess what I'm asking is, should Donald Trump return to that? It was a winning formula during the primary season, or be above the fray as he's done quite well over the last couple of weeks?
No, he had to do what he did in order to get through the primaries, no question about that. But now he's talking about being president of all the people and being presidential. And that means really addressing the issues. And it's so clear this time. I think it's clearer than it's ever been in the history of America. One side wants the government to control your life from cradle to grave, and one side wants to put the people back in charge. And also, it's a matter of the people versus the establishment. This is not so much about Democrats and Republicans. This is about the will of the people, about which this country was supposed to be, and the establishment, which is just completely offended by the thought of anyone other than them controlling things.
All right. Dr. Carson, always good having you. Thank you for taking the time.